His father had been arrested and sentenced to hard labour as a capitalist and democratic civic leader. As a result of this, my father did not trust the MPs to Wilson's left, but this rather increased his support for Wilson himself. My mother, a maths teacher and as much a believer in scientific progress as Dad, shared this concern about extremists, but for a reason that was both different and not so different. She was a survivor of Belsen concentration camp. She was always pretty wary politically of anybody, how shall I put this, overexcitable. By the end of the 1970s, my dad had come to the conclusion that planning the economy didn't work, and both of them became concerned about the left. Thus began the shift that saw them vote SDP in the 1980s and Conservative after that, though very much of the Major Cameron kind. So this was the environment I grew up in, a generally progressive household, but a Times reading one rather than a Guardian reading one. Rationalist and pro-science, firmly on the American side of the Cold War, socially liberal on race and women's equality, for the welfare state and public services, for free speech and the rule of law, and above all other things, for moderation, a sense of proportion and generosity to other people. Whether it's nurture or nature, a bit of both, I think, this isn't a bad description of my own politics all these years later. My mum often used to use the phrase, everything in moderation. She mostly applied it to portion size and her willingness to try anything once, but it could pretty much be our family political slogan. All of these hobbies and instincts I brought with me when I joined the Times properly in 2001. Plus one other thing, a lot of political experience. By the age of 24, I'd already run for Parliament. I was the SDP's candidate against Ken Livingstone in Brent East in 1987. I was far too young. I hadn't had a proper job yet. I lived at home and I couldn't drive. I've a letter from the local Citizens Advice Bureau somewhere that reads, "Dear Mr. Finkelstein, it was so nice to meet you and your mother." But I'd become close to the party leader David Owen and he'd become a mentor. Actually, he still is. I did a lot of growing up when I worked with David. During the 1987 election, we had breakfast every day before his press conference. He said he found it helpful and I believe him, because he doesn't dissemble even to your face. But I suspect it was me that found it more useful. I learned a lot from David about national politics, fighting by his side on the party's national committee. I also learned a great deal about how to maintain your integrity and independence, how to think things through for yourself and ensure you never let being moderate make you go soft altogether. Ultimately, of course, we were unsuccessful. The party collapsed, and I rather surprised myself by what I did next. I joined the Conservative Party. My politics had certainly shifted a bit since my teens. I'd become quite a lot more convinced of the benefits of a capitalist market economy, quite a bit more fiscally conservative, and a little bit more sceptical about government intervention. But what changed most was my view of political alliances. Experience had made me appreciate that you can't build a broad enough political movement if you only worked with people who shared your views and your background completely. The world isn't full of Jewish sons of refugees or people from Hendon Central with master's degrees in computing. The miners' strike, the arguments over CND, and the obvious fact that many of Mrs. Thatcher's reforms had been necessary also made me realise that I was trying to be right-wing on the left. So the Tories it was. Within about 3 years of joining the party, I found myself round the cabinet table briefing the Prime Minister as his head of research. It was the tail end of an 18-year government, and politically it was very tough. But it was hard not to respect John Major or to be proud of serving him. I wasn't too surprised, however, when we suffered a huge defeat. What followed was sometimes hilariously difficult. I became a close advisor to William Hague and convinced I was supporting someone who deserved to be Prime Minister. He was incisive, calm, witty and kind. His qualifications seemed to me obvious, but it was difficult to get.